Hey everybody, welcome back to the SuperBake podcast. I'm your host, Baker. Let's talk about stuff. Well, KU won the NCAA tournament. I realize this is not big news, but yeah, I'm from Missouri, so I try to root for MU as much as I can, but I don't know, I just feel like they haven't been very good in the sports department in quite a few years, at least as far as like football and basketball goes. But yeah, I can't deny, Bill Self, he's a great coach, but I would have liked to have seen Duke win just because I wanted to see I think their coach, forget his name, but I think this was supposed to be his last year and then he was retiring, so it would have been cool to see him win and see Duke win, in his last time coaching college basketball. But yeah, I'm not surprised KU won. They have a habit of doing that. Even when it seems like the odds are stacked against them, it seems like they always manage to come back. So anyways, today I wanted to talk about a couple things. Fairly big announcement that I'm going to save for the end of the episode. But as promised, I want to talk about Attack on Titan Season 4, Episodes 27 and 28 to cap off this fourth season. Of course, as I stated in the previous podcast, they have officially announced there is going to be a part 3, so I'll be looking forward to that in 2023 when that comes out. But for now, we'll go ahead and just wrap things up here with this season, or this part of Season 4. So episode 27, Retrospective. So in this one, we finally got to see the big confrontation between Mikasa and Armin's group and the Jaegerists being led by Flock, which was really awesome to see. Flock definitely has been a pretty interesting antagonist this season for sure, which is a far cry from where he was in the end of Season 3 when we're first introduced to him, when he helps them try to take down the Beast Titan. So yeah, it's kind of cool to see like how he's developed into a full-fledged villain. Definitely, I like how the show handled that. This episode was definitely a really tense episode for sure, not just from an action perspective, but even just from like several characters that we got to see in this episode. One big one was that we got to see Falco finally transform into the Jaw Titan, which was really awesome. And I like how his design looks too. Like, I know ultimately like what his Titan is going to do later on down the road, but I like the design of him. Like he has like the feathers and stuff on like his arms and things, which I know comes into a big play later on in the story. I'm not going to get into that too much right now. I'll wait for that to actually happen in the show, but I like the design of his Titan. And also I like how he goes berserk, which I guess from what they say in the show is pretty common for shifters when they first transform. Like they don't really have good control over their abilities. Because the Cart Titan, I think she tries to warn him against transforming, but basically like he sees like the other people like Mikasa and the others getting overwhelmed by the Jaegerists and he wants to help out. So that was cool. And then we also kind of got to see a very brief confrontation between his Titan and the Cart Titan when she's trying to calm him down, which was also cool to see too. We also got to see Reiner and Annie fight together in their respective Titan forms, and that was really awesome as well. I think this is like one of the few times in the entire show, at least right up to this point, that we've actually seen Titans fight alongside each other. Well, no, I guess that's not true. I guess technically we did see when, was it Ymir was the Jaw Titan in Season 2 or 3 when she helped Eren fight against Reiner and stuff. Well, she helped him fight against a few Titans, but it was cool to see that for sure, especially two accomplished warriors like Annie and Reiner. I really enjoyed that aspect too. Another thing that was really cool in the fight scene was just seeing Mikasa flying around and just absolutely slaughtering the Jaegerists. We've already known since Season 1 that Mikasa is a very skilled hand-to-hand combatant, but this shows once again just how deadly she is, not just to Titans, but even against other humans. I like the scene when she, like the badass way she's using her ODM gear to take out the Jaegerists. Like there's one scene where she like pierces one Jaegerist with like her ODM gear and like pulls another one into them and then like pulls the pin out from their thunder spear and makes them just blow up and it just rains down blood on her. That was such a fucking brutal scene. So yeah, that whole fight scene was awesome. Something else that was really cool to see too is like this is the first time Annie's really been out of that crystal since Season 1. So she's still basically the same character that she was in Season 1. Except for like the conversations that she's taken in subconsciously from Armin, who's gone to visit her. But it's like to her, a lot of the stuff is new. Like she's not even aware of the Thunder Spears. She's never seen them in combat. So kind of seeing her reaction to these things was really interesting. Like she's kind of used to being the dominating force in a battle. And this is like the first time we see her like, kind of getting her ass kicked by a few of the humans, which is something that I'm sure she wasn't expecting either. So I liked we kind of got to see her surprise in that respect. The only thing I wanted to ask is, like, okay, I know that Flock is supposed to be the leader of the Jaegerists, and at this point in the story, it's been like a few years, so he's obviously had time to develop his skills as a fighter. But, like, how did he manage to get past both the Jaw Titan, Hanji, and the Kara Titan? Like, the dude's a freaking unit in this episode. Like, it's like, you never really see him do anything that badass previously, and then suddenly he's able to take on all these guys and dodge all their attacks. Not to mention, in the episode 26, I think he had Annie and Reiner both transform like right behind him in midair, and it's like I feel like in any other season he would have gotten just annihilated by the transformation explosion. But I get it; it's for a dramatic effect, but just something I wanted to point out. But yeah, basically, like we see that Mikasa's group is trying to get to the boat, which I can't remember what it's called. They're trying to get to the boat to essentially go to another port where they can get the flying ship fixed, so they can actually try to catch up to Eren from the sky. And so they're trying to get this boat ready, and then Flock is trying to him and his group are trying to take it out with their explosives, and we see Flock is like the last one he has like his sights on the ship with his thunder spear, and then he gets shot by somebody, and we see that it's actually Annie that takes him out, or not Annie, Gabby shoots him and takes him down. So again, I point to Gabby for her character development. I love seeing how she's really growing as a character and actually pulling her weight out there too. And again, it's kind of sad, too, because we can see the horrified look on her face that even though she's shooting someone who she would normally consider her enemy, you can tell that she really doesn't want to do it and doesn't take any enjoyment from this. Like, I'm definitely liking her character more and more and feeling sorry for her as this goes on. Her and Falco both. They're just like two little kids that have been just thrown into this, god-awful situation. And then we also get a pretty cool post-credit scene where we get to see a really different side of Annie, where she actually confesses to the group that she doesn't want to kill anymore. And it's really sad to see the effects that this war has had on her character specifically. I remember in the first season, like, she's such a seemingly cold, calculating character. Obviously, we learn that there's much more to her than that later on, but she's so kind of just disconnected from everybody else, emotionally speaking. Of course, like, she really wants to protect her father, and we kind of find out that that's really kind of her main motivation in this story. But, like, beyond that, we don't really see a whole lot of emotion from her character, so this was a really cool scene to see. And just to see, like, the heartfelt conversation she has with Mikasa, where she asks her just straight up, like, do you think you could kill Eren? Because I don't know if I can. She basically says, like, she doesn't want to kill anybody anymore. That was a gut-wrenching scene, and I like that they gave her character that little moment. I really enjoyed that. And then, of course, the big, I'm already in spoiler territory, but, like, the big, there were two big deaths in this episode at the very end of it. Theo Magath and Keith Shadis, who, I hope I'm saying their names correctly. And then Keith, of course, was the guy who trained Eren and his group from the very first season, the one that trained them how to fight in the Scouts. And seeing these two characters, these two kind of old veterans, or older characters, like kind of war veterans, kind of meet and actually have their little conversation, that was really cool. Basically, they kind of stay behind and they take out this one ship that could catch up to Mikasa's group when they get on the bigger ship, and so they take this ship out so that the reinforcements for the Jaegerists can't catch up to Mikasa's group and kill them. But of course, they have to sacrifice themselves in the explosion in the process. It was a pretty sad scene, and I really liked Magath's character, like the way he shows remorse for putting Falco and the others through this. Knowing that the shifters were really just kids. And he blames himself for this. I think this was a nice little kind of redemption moment for him. I liked his character a lot throughout this whole thing. We definitely see him change his perspective on the world as well. Like, I liked his confrontation in the previous episodes between him and Jean, where he's telling him about, he kind of gives Jean shit because Jean sees them as the Marleyans of the enemy, but he tells them about, well, Marley was persecuted by the Eldians, thousands of years ago. But of course, we also see in this one, he does kind of regret what he says, and he even apologizes to Jean later on about that. So I really loved the way his character has grown this season, and I was actually definitely sad to see him go, even though I think I remember seeing that from the manga. I must have just forgotten about that part. But yeah, that entire episode, that was a good episode. Definitely brutal too. A lot of really brutal death scenes in there for sure. And then of course we have the final episode of part 2, which is episode 28, The Dawn of Humanity. And in this episode, most of it is basically like a big flashback where we're kind of seeing a lot of the events play out through Eren's memory. But we're finally given a glimpse into Aaron's mind and what he's kind of been thinking this whole time, and we kind of get to see Aaron for the first time in quite a long time this season. He's been surprisingly absent for the last few episodes, so it was cool to see him again. Cool to see like what's been going on with his character, and then we get to see kind of a flashback where he and the rest of the group, where they initially come to Marley to go to a speech, I believe, that another Eldian is having. And this is such a great scene for a few reasons. One, because we get to see most of the entire gang back together, including Sasha, who I love Sasha. She's like my favorite character in the show. Seeing her again made me so legitimately sad. But I love that scene with her and the group, and they discover they're just in this town square, and there's a bunch of shops nearby, and they discover ice cream, and just their reaction to ice cream because they've never had it before is just so fucking funny. And then of course there's this one great scene where it's so creepy but funny. It's where Levi, because he's so little, everybody thinks he's a kid, and there's this really fucking creepy scene with this clown that gets up right behind Levi and asks him if he wants like a balloon, and like the look on Levi's face, I legit thought he was gonna like just beat the shit out of this dude, which I would have loved to see. But that was so great. And then there's another great point where the gang sees a car go by, and because they've never seen a car before, they don't know what it is. They think it's some kind of horse, and I think it's Hanji. One of them is actually like, let's go get a carrot, and then like Levi and this other guy are watching, and they're just like, they're not gonna. Oh, they're buying a carrot. That fucking killed me. I love those characters. Hanji and Sasha, I swear to God, those two I think are my favorite two characters in this whole show. Like, they're so great. But yeah, that episode was great, and we also kind of get to see kind of a hint of how Aaron's been feeling throughout this whole ordeal, like the way he's kind of taken this all in, and we kind of see his character, like how he's very distant from everybody else. There's a scene where Mikasa comes up to him and has him try ice cream, and we can see like Aaron before she even tells him what it is, Aaron knows what it is immediately. And she's like, and Mikasa's like, oh, have you had this before? And he goes, no, I saw this through someone's memory. I think it was his father's memory. And it's like, throughout this whole thing, like Aaron's definitely been very distant. It's almost kind of like he makes me think of Dr. Manhattan in many ways, where it's like he almost doesn't view time in a linear fashion because he can see the previous Attack Titan's memories. So it's like, it seems like he's always just trying to take in information. But then, of course, there's a scene later on where this kid that they help escape, this kid who initially tries to rob them, they help him escape because the Marleyans want to basically beat him to death or hang him. He invites Aaron and his group to his little gathering where his family is, and they basically give them like a feast, and you see Aaron and his group basically getting shit-faced drunk, and we see this. There's actually kind of a touching moment where Aaron is watching Mikasa and Armin looking genuinely happy, and we see Aaron smiling, which I think this definitely shows like there is still a good person in Aaron. Like, he's not, even though the tactics that he's using, the rumbling, are incredibly brutal and sadistic, we do see that like really, I think at his core, what he really wants is to just see his friends, these people that he's come to know as his family. He just wants to see them safe and happy, and we see the genuine joy that he has when seeing Armin and Mikasa, forget about their troubles for one night and just have a drink. Also, I love the core group of Aaron, Armin, Mikasa, Jean, Connie, and Sasha. Like, they're just like, it's almost like siblings, the way they understand each other. And in this scene when they're just kind of partying and having a good time with these other people, and then of course they get completely drunk, and then Levi and Haji find them like disappointed parents. They find them passed out on the ground, including Aaron, which I loved. It kind of showed like a more human side to Aaron in this. And then of course we see, I almost missed this the first time. I watched the episode again, and in the background, if you watch, you can see Sasha puking on the ground. Like, of course it was Sasha. It's such a Sasha move. I love that. But yeah, that was interesting. And then of course we get to see a few other flashbacks where we kind of see the different tactics that Aaron's been employing on other characters throughout, or in conversation, mainly Flock, Zeke, and Historia, where he's kind of been feeding each of them kind of his own little form of bullshit. Well, I guess I shouldn't say bullshit, but like, I would say really Aaron was kind of bullshitting Zeke, because we've seen in a previous episode that like Zeke wants to euthanize, he wants to go through with like the euthanasian plan of Eldians to where there won't be any more, so there won't be any more Titans, which we see that Aaron lied to Zeke and told him he was for it, and then of course the truth was he was actually wanting to use Zeke to get the rumbling started to wipe out everybody except for the people of Paradise. We see him tell Flock about his plan to wipe out everybody in the outside world, and then we see him talk to Historia. And it's the conversation between Eren and Historia that really caught my attention. Like, this conversation to me was especially sad because we see how far Eren is willing to go to carry out his vision. And we see like just the look of horror on Historia's face when she sees like just how determined he is to carry this thing out. And how she even tells him at one point, like, many people who don't even know your name are going to be slaughtered, just like how your mom was back in back in season 1. And that was, she really puts it into perspective, like, the hypocrisy of Eren's plan, like because like in the first season, we kind of see like the rage that watching Eren's mom get eaten alive by a Titan, what that instilled in him. And now it's definitely skewed his vision of the world, where now anybody in his mind who is not with him is his enemy and needs to be wiped out. And yeah, and then also too, there's a pretty disturbing thing that he tells her, where basically when she tells him what he's doing is wrong, he just says, "Oh, I'll just use the power of the founding Titan to wipe your memory, so you won't remember it anymore, and it won't haunt you." But the way he says it with such callousness. It's it's almost like this is just business as usual for him. Like, oh, okay, I'll take care of this. Like it's just a remedial task at the office that he has to take care of, And I think this again also demonstrates just how detached Eren is from basically anybody who is not within his close circle of friends, like Mikasa and the others. Those are the people that he cares about, and those are the ones that he's willing to, to do this for, to go through these lengths for. But everybody else, as far as Eren is concerned, is just a distraction. And I think this conversation really helps hammer that home. And I it really stood out to me for that reason. And then, of course, the final moments in this episode, I think, are some of the best this show has ever had. So basically the way it ends is we finally get to see Eren and the Colossal Titans, the rumbling, essentially make its way towards the shores of Marley. And just all the horrific brutality that it brings with it. We see like the naval forces just off the coast essentially try to stop the Colossal Titans who are swimming towards them, which that scene of the Colossal Titans swimming in the water and the way they're moving so fast, that was genuinely creepy and disturbing. Like, you see them and they're moving seemingly so slow when they're on land, but when they're in the water, they almost seem like torpedoes just gliding towards these ships. And the Marleyan forces basically try to launch a counteroffensive against them, and we see them take out a few Colossal Titans here and there, but most of them make it through. And there's like just hundreds of thousands of them, so it's like these military ships are not even making a dent in their numbers. And then there's just this wall of steam that just comes barreling through, and then there's one shot that is like so gruesome to watch. You see these soldiers literally getting boiled alive to the point where their muscles and skin just fly off their body, and you see like just bits of their bones as this steam just kills them. That scene was just so horrific to see. I mean, I guess it would make sense. It's like you think about the steam that these Colossal Titans put off their bodies, and the fact that there's hundreds of thousands of them, like, yeah, that probably would heat that water up to, a pretty high temperature. So that was, oh my God. And the ships just go flying. And then, of course, you see the rest of the Marleyan forces on the land watching this just in horror as the Colossal Titans start to just slowly emerge out of the water and march down on them. And, of course, the other soldiers just do what I would have done, shit my pants and run. Like, I like that scene, how, like, you just see them turn around and run, and they don't even say a word. They just literally are just like, fuck this, and just get the hell out of there, which, yeah, I don't blame them. I would do literally the exact same thing. And then, of course, the final shot is we get to see, they look back and they see Eren's face just looking at them with just such menace. And he says that line from the first season where they show like a flashback of his face when he sees his mom getting eaten, and then it cuts back to this, and he says, I'm going to kill them all, the same line that he said in the first season. And then it ends with the Titans just basically, barreling down on the town and just crushing everything in their path. I really liked that callback to the first season too. It shows that in many ways, some of that rage that Eren had in the first season is still very much present in him. And I think it shows his resolve too. Like, he has managed to keep that rage built up inside him this entire time, and he has not forgotten his original goal. Like, I've heard some people say that, like, they pointed out like the irony that he originally wanted to wipe out the Titans, and now he's using Titans to wipe out humanity. But I think in many ways you could argue that Eren didn't say, in the first season, all he said was, I'm going to wipe them all out. I'm going to kill them all. He doesn't specifically say Titans, or at least I don't think he does. In this, I kind of look at it more as he's going to wipe out his enemies, not just the Titans, but just people that he views as his enemies. And really, in his mind, he sees the Marleyans as the ones who were ultimately responsible for his mother's death and for the suffering of him and Mikasa and the others. But yeah, I mean, it is interesting. Like, he's using Titans to get his revenge on people, the people who wronged him and his family. But that was just such a, oh my god, that scene was so awesome. Damn, I hate that I have to wait like another fucking year to see the conclusion to this. I mean, even though I know what happens, I'm curious to see how much, if anything, they're going to change of the ending. I hope they don't change anything about it. I know it's controversial, but I really do like the ending of Attack on Titan. I had to give it time and let it really sink in and think about it, but the more I've thought about it, the more I really do like it. It's a gutsy ending for sure, but I respect it for doing that. But yeah, this season has my full recommendation in case it wasn't obvious by now. Definitely check it out for sure, and as always, let me know your thoughts. But now to the big announcement, and this is something that I literally just found out about right before I sat down to record this episode. The announcement trailer for Kingdom Hearts 4 premiered. I don't know if it was today or if it was yesterday, but I literally just found out about this. So this was a part of the 20th anniversary of the series. They announced this game along with another game called Missing Link. But yeah, there's no official release date yet. They haven't even said like what year this is going to come out, but Square Enix has stated that this is going to be the beginning of, I think that's called the Lost Master arc, which is basically going to be a completely new storyline for Sora, Donald, and Goofy, which we kind of got hints of that at the end of Kingdom Hearts 3. I think it was like in the post-credit scene. But so basically the trailer shows Sora in a new world that's very similar to ours. Like, it looks very modern, like it has skyscrapers, roads, and cars. And then we see that the city is attacked by a giant Heartless that appears to be, I don't remember what his name is, but it's that very first Heartless boss that you fight in the original Kingdom Hearts. That's what the design looks like, at least. And we see that Sora fights that Heartless. We see that there's a few members of the organization sitting on a tower watching, and then later on we see the Donald and Goofy walking around in total darkness, that they appear to be looking for something. Suddenly they're startled by a strange voice from behind them, and then the trailer cuts away. And then there's no release date or anything shown. It just says magic in the making, which to me indicates that they're still working on it, and this is probably just in very early development. But still, I'm super excited about this. I'm also very surprised too, because it seems like between at least the main titles in the Kingdom Hearts series, like 1, 2, 3, like it seems like it's been quite a long time between them. Like Kingdom Hearts, I think the first one came out in 2002, and I think Kingdom Hearts 2 came out in 2006, so 4 years between those two roughly. Not super long, but then of course Kingdom Hearts 3 came out in 2019, so quite a bit of time between 2 and 3. So I was kind of thinking based on that it might be another 5 to 10 years between 3 and 4, but it looks like we might be getting it a little bit sooner than expected. So, I mean, obviously, I'm not holding my breath on this just yet, because obviously this is just an announcement trailer, and it could be years before we see anything new, just like what we got with Kingdom Hearts 3. But hopefully this is a sign that maybe it's not going to be quite so long between 3 and 4 as it was between 2 and 3. But yeah, I mean, I like Kingdom Hearts. Admittedly, I've grown out of it a little bit as I've gotten older. But I still like the series, quite a bit. It's a fun action type game that I enjoy, so I'll be keeping a close eye out for this if there's any developments. I am curious to see where the story goes for this, just because it is going to be, like I said, a completely new storyline. And I think Square Enix has even said that this is not going to be a standalone game. There's going to be sequels to it, so it could be another trilogy series. I don't think they've really given specifics on that yet. But, it's cool that we're getting out of the story with Xehanort and the other and those guys. It's cool that we're going to get hopefully some brand new villains and some interesting plot lines from this story, so I'm curious to see where that goes. One thing that I would like to see, because that's something I was thinking about with this, was just a few things I'd like to see from this game, is I'd like to see more Final Fantasy characters, because I feel like they were missing in Kingdom Hearts 3. I mean, I know that they released a DLC for it that brought in Leon, Yuffie, and Sid, but those characters were not in the initial version of that game that came out, at least the one that I played. I didn't play any of the DLC, but they were the only Final Fantasy characters in there. Like, I don't think there were hardly any others, at least not from what I remember. So I'm hoping that we'll get to see more Final Fantasy characters in this game. Just a few things that I'd like to see as far as Final Fantasy goes is I'd love to see, of course, Cloud and several other Final Fantasy VII characters show up in this. Like, I'd love to see Barrett, Red 13, Vincent Valentine. I'd love to see those guys show up in this. That'd be really cool. I'd like to see some Final Fantasy IX characters too. Like that'd be really cool to see. And then of course, I'd like it if they could give Leon and the gang a much bigger role in this game. I really feel like they had a relatively big role in the first game, and they were kind of more in the background in Kingdom Hearts 2, and then again, barely in Kingdom Hearts 3 at all. Not even in the game if you didn't play the DLC. So I'd love to see them have more of a bigger role in this game. I think that'd be really nice. Something else I'd like to see too, as far as like Disney worlds go, is I'd love to see like Hunchback of Notre Dame. I know it was in Dream Drop Distance, but I never really played that game. But I'd love to see it on like one of the main titles, especially like with the graphic capabilities of the console, like the PS5 and stuff. I think that'd be really cool to see. Plus, I like Hunchback of Notre Dame. It's one of my personal favorite Disney films, so I'd love to see like, the Notre Dame Cathedral and stuff like in a game like that, in a massive game like Kingdom Hearts 4. I think that'd be really cool. Another game I'd like to see the Black Cauldron. Again, I think it's kind of an underrated Disney film. I like the Black Cauldron. I dig it. It's not one of my personal favorites. It's not really a movie that I watch all the time, but I still like it quite a bit. Plus I think the villain from that game, the Horned King, I think he'd be a badass villain to have in a Kingdom Hearts game. Kind of like a Maleficent type villain. I think he'd be really cool. Just no Gurgi, please. The little annoying, like, furry version of Gollum. Like, no, thank you. None of him. I shouldn't say that, because now if they do it, he's going to be in there for sure. I'd like to see Moana. I think that'd be cool. I think that movie would give a lot of potential to Kingdom Hearts. You could have a similar sailing mechanic like what you had with the Pirates of the Caribbean level with Kingdom Hearts 3. Plus, like the action sequences in Moana, I think were really cool too, and I think that would fit nicely into a Kingdom Hearts game. And also too, just like I remember the main villain from Moana. I think it'd be cool to see that villain, with Kingdom Hearts graphics and kind of see what they could do with that. So I think that'd be really nice. Also too, I don't know how this would work, but I'm gonna throw this out there. The Great Mouse Detective. That's like one of my all-time favorite Disney movies. Again, I have no idea how Square Enix would do it, but I would just love to see this old Disney movie with Kingdom Hearts graphics. And just the idea of Sora and Basil of Baker Street running around trying to stop Ratigan just makes me smile. And also just the dog Toby from that movie, just replace him with Goofy. And I think that's just going to make for, if nothing else, I think it would make for a good comedic level. But yeah, those are just a couple things that I'd like to see in this game. So hopefully, like I said, hopefully we won't have to wait as long for this like we did between 2 and 3. But I'll definitely be keeping an eye out for any updates on this. But this was definitely exciting news and caught me by surprise. All right, guys, I think this is going to be all I have for today. So once again, I am on Anchor, Spotify, YouTube. I also have the SuperBake podcast is also officially on Twitter and Facebook as well. So please be sure to like and subscribe and follow me on those sites as well. All right, guys, catch you all next time.